Intersection Magazine Podcast.
Welcome to Intersection Magazine Podcast. My guest today is Margaret Ntambi. I met Margaret through another guest who's in the financial space, who introduced me to her and thought she would be a good fit for the podcast. For those who don't know, we mainly tackle in innovation and technology in the greater East Africa region. So I found out a little bit about her and what she's doing. And I think you guys will appreciate her as a guest and the insight she has to offer. So once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And we hope that you enjoy this episode. So in terms of format, we're going to approach this in this way. We're going to have a work section where we'll talk about her projects and her work, and then her internships, her education, and then her work in the FemTech space. Now, I'm really interested in her work in the FemTech space because if you cover the innovation and technology landscape and the ecosystems broadly, you'll find that very few people are doing what she's doing or covering the work that she's doing for women in FemTech. And so I think her insights will be valuable for those of you who are interested in investing and in spaces that are not really captured or people are not paying much attention to. So as I said, work, internships, education, and FemTech. So Margaret, please tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm interested. Maybe we can start off with your education. Tell me about your time at NYU, University of Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you today. I'm really looking forward to this session. So I think to better understand my education, it requires me to share a little bit about my background. So my parents are from Uganda.
Okay.
They moved to the U.S. in the 80s when my father got a scholarship to do his PhD at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland.
Nice.
When they went to the U.S., they had already had 2 children here in Uganda.
Okay.
Myself and my brother were born in Baltimore, and then they had 2 more children in Madison, Wisconsin, which is where my dad started his professorship.
Okay.
After he finished his PhD in biochemistry and nutritional sciences. Key about that entire background, I guess, the brevity of it, is that my parents are academics.
Okay.
So foundationally, education was very, very important in my household. They focused on making sure we had the spaces and the resources to focus on doing well in school. And so by the time I was ready to go to college, I felt like I was prepared. Yeah. So I applied to a few different schools. NYU was one of them for undergrad. I did get into NYU for undergrad, but I went to the University of Wisconsin because I had a full ride scholarship.
Okay, nice.
And in the U.S., if you know anything about university, it's quite expensive. So went to University of Wisconsin, was there with my dad, right? He was a professor there. That's where I grew up. So I basically stayed home for college, which was very important as well. Because when I think my experience is when you're 18, you do feel mature. Yeah. Obviously, you feel like you're an adult, but there's so many things that you'll experience as you transition into independence in college that I felt like I was grateful that my parents were in my backyard as I went through experiences that required me to build up my resilience, in college.
Okay.
So I plan to follow in my father's footsteps, do medicine, or also become a professor when I started out as a freshman at Wisconsin. But my freshman year, my dad and I went to Uganda together with my mom. And I had been to Uganda many times before, obviously, as my parents are natives. Had gone to school here as well. I went to Gayaza High School briefly in S3. So, you know, I can claim that. But this time around, when I went with my dad, my freshman year, I was going with him and his students.
Okay.
He had been running a global health program at Wisconsin he's been running it for over 20 years.
Okay.
Where he takes his students to observe the nutritional deficiencies that people in rural communities face and provide mitigation strategies. So anyway, I went. But when I went to these rural communities, I was like, why isn't there more of an vibrant economy, like trade, retail businesses, people, you know, making money and being comfortable.
Which year was this? About what year was this?
This was around
your freshman year?
2010, 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010, 2011. So I was like, why aren't people prospering in these communities? And what can I do to support them in gaining prosperity? So from my understanding, working in communities that need economic development, there's a few options of how you can make an impact. You work in nonprofits. Maybe you work in medicine, which is what I was there to do, focus on nutritional issues and help these people reduce the amount of non-communicable diseases or diseases that could be prevented through nutritional intervention. There's so many ways that you can play a role in making an impact in people's lives. But for me, what I realized was that the foundation of economic development is the wealth of the people in these spaces. And for wealth to be generated, businesses need to be created. People need to get jobs so that they have more money in their pockets. To enable people to have businesses, they need access to financing. And therefore, I said, okay, how do I become an investor? Someone who invests in growing small businesses to support people in making money and creating jobs and increasing the economic prosperity of where they live. So I changed my major to finance, investments, and banking because I realized I needed to understand money if I was going to be investing at some point in my life. But I didn't realize when I started down the road of finance that there was such a diverse array of different roles you can do within finance. I got recruited into corporate finance. I started working at Procter and Gamble. Actually, one point that I do want to bring up, I apologize, is the U.S. Department of State internship in Swaziland was actually my first internship. And that was more development work, right? So working with people in communities, giving them resources to education, but doing it from a policy perspective. But I realized that because I had switched my major to finance, investments, and banking when I had this revelation my freshman year, that if I was going to be a financier, I actually had to practice hard finance. Being in Excel, running models, and communicating what those models tell you so that you can make business decisions. I wasn't going to get that working at the U.S. Department of State, is what I had realized after that experience, even though it was great.
But you got the best of both worlds in the sense of working in the NGO world, or the non-profit world, and then going into major finance.
Exactly. But anyway, so when I started the recruiting process into finance for internships, right, because I did the U.S. Department of State my sophomore year, second year of university. Third year is when I said, okay, now my next internship needs to be focused on teaching me finance. However, I didn't know, as I said, the diverse array of options in finance. And I didn't know that private equity and investment banking were the corridors to venture capital. Because I didn't have any mentors in finance. My parents were academics. They knew medicine. They knew research. You know, that's what they knew. So got recruited into corporate finance, Procter and Gamble. That was my first internship. I was working on the global oral care team, doing cost analysis on the Crest and Oral-B brands. So obviously these major brands that distribute globally have manufacturing plants, and there's costs involved in creating these products. So I was analyzing those cost structures and helping the team think through ways to be more efficient. So in being more efficient in business is creating more profitability, cutting costs. So that was my focus. Well, other people played different roles on the Oral-B brand. That was my role at that time. Very, very good opportunity because it did teach me core finance skills. I had never, outside of what I did in university, really dug into financial modeling, explicitly doing that work in Excel, translating that information into presentations that I can share with my cross-functional team so that they can make business decisions. That practical work I couldn't get in at school. And that's what that role taught me. So that was my junior year. My senior year, I came back to P&G for another internship. I worked with the Gillette brand. For that role, I was doing pricing strategy globally for Venus razors. So with that, what that entailed was, what should the pricing be on shelf for each SKU based off of the features of the SKU. Different razors have different features and different costs and therefore different prices. And how do we as P&G price that to retailers who would then end up buying it, right? And then how do retailers position our product on shelf against competitive products, and therefore creating a pricing strategy with those inputs, including marketing, how much volume are we going to drive based off of the marketing strategy. So as the pricing manager, I had inputs from all these different cross-functional teams to help inform them on to be profitable at these specific margins. This is what we need to price the product. But if we do these things, this is how it will impact our position in market. So that's kind of what pricing strategy is. And so I learned that with the Gillette team. So that was a very, very good, interesting experience. Learned a lot. Then after that, they gave me a full-time offer at P&G. And I started in Cincinnati. So the first internship with the oral care team was in Cincinnati, Ohio. The second internship with Gillette was in Boston because that's where they manufacture some of the razors in the U.S. And then when I started full time, I was back in Cincinnati. And in that role, my first role, I became a financial analyst for the team's IT, voice, and network infrastructure. So big corporates obviously need bandwidth, internet to run the organization. And we hire different companies to provide that service. So at that time, they had a specific partner providing them with bandwidth to do internet and voice. So for me, my role was managing that forecast, how much it costs us to run that service. And then during that time as well, we put out a request for proposal to get other third parties to provide that service. So I learned about that process as well in that role. After I did that job for like a year and a half, I moved to becoming the pricing manager for the Always Pads brand. So again, pricing, similar to what I had experienced at Gillette. So there was some familiarity, different brand, so different customer, different buying behavior of that customer, and therefore, as well as the manufacturing process was different, the cost structure was different, but I knew how to do it because I'd done it before. But now, there is some differentiation to what my inputs were as the pricing manager and how I communicated strategy to my team for them to make business decisions. So did that, but then I wanted to move out of the Midwest. The Midwest in the U.S. is not very diverse. And being a Ugandan girl, that didn't really fit a box, I would say, very well in the Midwest. I wanted to be in a more diverse environment. So I moved to the East Coast. I moved to Washington, D.C., and I got a job at Accenture. At Accenture, again, pricing. I was pricing consulting and outsourcing contracts. Quite large contracts. I would say on average above 100 million in total contract value. So very big contracts. And again, as a finance person, and when you're building models, there's the cost structure. So in those environments, there's the people, the consultants, there's the technology they're using to provide service to their client. And then also as we built out our cost structure, the, I guess, most negotiated part of the process as it pertains to doing this again was request for proposals. So as I said, at P&G, I was on the side of the client looking for service from a consulting company. So I had learned the process from the client side at P&G, but now I was on the consulting side and negotiating with the client.
Okay.
So that was interesting that I had got both sides of that process. And so, like I said, negotiating with the client, the most important part was really how they were going to pay for the service. Were they going to pay hourly based off of how many hours the consultants were working? Were they going to pay fixed fees? Like if you think about your phone bill, you pay a fixed monthly fee, at least in the US, when, that's how it's done. Are you going to pay based off of volume? So how many units of consumption that the client would be using if they're like using bandwidth for internet service, right? They sell by volume here in Uganda. So I learned all of those different ways of pricing based off of how a client was going to buy the product or service. Okay. So as you can see, all my experience kind of culminate into becoming an expert in pricing strategy.
Okay.
And so I've done that work basically for over a decade in different industries. Again, JP Morgan Chase, pricing loans, this time auto loans for luxury manufacturers. So different client. This one is now a consumer, similar to my time at P&G where I was pricing for the consumer. While at Accenture, I was pricing for businesses. Okay. Then with JP Morgan Chase, instead of it being a packaged good like a pad or a razor or whatever in my P&G experiences, now this was a financial instrument, a loan. So what I've learned at JP Morgan is how to price loans based off of, obviously, again, you have your cost structure as the business. Then you have the price that you would like to be at to have specific profitability metrics, but then you're also considering competitive factors. So what are the other banks doing to win business, and how can we drive value but also remain profitable? So that's pricing. Now, 10 years later, I haven't yet started investing in African-focused businesses. Okay. And I knew that was my passion. As I told you, that's the reason why I changed my trajectory from medicine into finance. So I was like, okay, it's time for me to try to make that transition into investing in African-focused companies. Okay. So that's why I got my MBA. I started my executive MBA at NYU Stern in 2020. And I used that as a launching pad into early stage investing. Okay. I got a fellowship at a US-based fund called Rare Breed Ventures. They invest very early stage, pre-seed, seed, in founders that have unique and repeatable customer acquisition strategies or are building hardware products in industries that haven't seen innovation for over 10 years. Okay. So that was his investment thesis, pre-seed, seed, the managing partner. And he was focusing outside of major tech ecosystems. So the reason why that was his thesis is because as a VC, what I've learned over time is that you're competing for LPs, limited partners money to invest in your fund so that you can invest. So you need to have a differentiated strategy and be able to communicate that. For him, investing outside of major tech ecosystems meant that the concentrations of VCs focusing on that strategy was probably fewer than the ones who only did Silicon Valley, Boston, New York, right? The tech hubs where, and in his pitch to LPs, he had to display that there are examples of successful companies that operate, under the strategy.
So Rare Breed, where are they geographically located?
Baltimore.
Okay.
Yeah, so at this time I was living in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia. Yeah. Okay. So, I got luckily, and actually I met the managing partner on Twitter. So what I realized as I was going through this journey of learning VC, To network, you need to be online. And that mostly was Twitter. And there's obviously it's LinkedIn. But before that, I wasn't online during my corporate career because there wasn't a need for that to progress. But in venture capital and startups and whatever, you need to be online to know what's going on. It's all about content, and that's how you learn and network. So I met him. I saw him tweeting. He raised his fund on Twitter, right? So I saw how he did that. He built his brand. He was tweeting every day, and his focus was providing value to founders and investors. Yes, sorry. Go ahead. Do you have a question there?
No question. So that's venture capital flow comes after that?
Yeah, so you're saying...
is that the...
Yes. So now we're moving into how we're getting to this part. Yes.
Okay.
So
so you're telling me how he was using Twitter to
raise his funds. Yeah.
How he knows this.
Yeah. So I ended up DMing him when he was in the very early stages of raising his fund because I realized to build a brand in VC, I needed to start networking through reaching out to people online. And I knew he was growing his brand, and I said, let me give it a chance to see if he'll reply. At this point, I don't remember how many followers he had, but a lot.
Yeah.
So very unlikely that maybe he was going to respond, but he did. And I took that chance to say, hey, I want to work for you. I want to learn about venture capital. Here's my resume. Can we have a meeting?
At that point, what would your Twitter profile look like? What did you have on your profile?
At that time, I had very few followers because I was just starting out. I think maybe no more than 70 to 150. I can't even remember. But just know I wasn't really tweeting. I was more observing. Okay. But in terms of your, how some people put up their work experience and stuff like that, just you have very few, a small space to kind of get people to notice you. So. Yeah, so at that time, I think I'd said NYU. Okay. Before I had gotten the fellowship with Rare Breed, I had started doing VC, analyst acceleration programs. So I'd done one called Gen Z VC. Okay. So I had done that. I had also done a fellowship with Parity, which is a startup platform. So I put those two things on. Gen Z VC fellow, Scout. Parity was a fellow. Okay. And I was doing an MBA program. Right. Okay. So I had those three credentials to look like could be taken seriously, or at least I'm attempting to break into the space. And I'm working towards that.
What did your message look like?
I have it.
Because you have to.
Do you want me to bring it up?
Please.
Okay, I'll bring it up because it might be helpful. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, because sometimes you just have to take chances.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can't have fear. You just have to hope that people will embrace what you're trying to do. And that's why one thing that's a big part about who I am, and I didn't get to talk much about it in the beginning, was that growing up in Wisconsin and not feeling like I could fit into a box I was very lonely often because I didn't really fit with specific crowds. I was a swimmer, an African girl swimmer. I was very different. So because I'd been alone and also know what it felt like to not be accepted, a big part of who I am is being inclusive. Okay. No matter where you come from, no matter who you are, if you message me or reach out to me, I will try to get back to you. I know for me, I'm not the best at always responding, and you've experienced that side of me. But I'm always trying to make space to meet, because that's how I've gotten all my opportunities. So somebody being giving me a chance to just speak or express, I want to learn from you, whatever. So this is what I said. This is February 9th, 2021. Hey, Mac, I hope you're having a fabulous day. I was wondering if Rare Breed is hiring fellows, associates, or senior associates. I'm incredibly interested in being a part of your team. I'm down the street from you in Columbia, Maryland, so I wasn't, we lived nearby each other. I've attached my resume for your reference. I'm a fellow at Parity Inc. and Gen Z VC, and I'm trying to break into a full-time role. Thank you so much for your time in advance.
Oh, cool.
And he responded. I put my resume, and he said, send me an email to, heads up, though, we aren't in a position to hire. So he already had said, I can't hire, but send me, let's have a call since you reached out. That I've emulated that. even though, yeah, sometimes
You have your foot in the door now.
Yeah. But the thing is that he's trying to express, I know that I probably can't deliver the full-time role, but for me, I still was like, okay with that, you know, let me still try to make something out of this connection. So that's how it happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is there a specific reason why you were interested in pre-seed and early stage investment?
So venture capital, yes, as I was learning more through these fellowships, took time because I think the learning curve for VC is actually quite steep. I learned the stages, right? And I felt like a lot of the activity, a lot of the excitement was in early stage.
Okay.
And I gravitated towards that because not exactly sure why I gravitated towards that, but I could see that like there was something here that people were excited about and I wanted to learn why. Not saying that the other stages aren't interesting, but I've been doing corporate finance for so long, being in like big organizations that I guess just don't have that buzz that like this tech ecosystems have, especially in the early stage when people are really trying to build. You have a dream, you have hope, you have faith. Like that, I think that mindset I was very attracted to because to feel like you can make it in early stage investing as well as a founder, you have to have a specific mindset. You have to have like a hope because you're starting something from scratch. And so emerging managers are also, which is what Mac was at the time. Most of them start at pre-seed because you can't start like typically unless you've been at a growth fund. You don't break in that way as an emerging VC manager. And so I already knew that I'd been in corporate finance. I didn't have investment banking experience. I didn't have private equity experience. So I didn't have late stage investing experience mostly. And so if I was going to break in, my profile would be more suitable for early stage. Versus later stage. And I had attempted actually to apply to jobs at private equity funds and M&A while I was in my MBA program because I was trying to find a way to break in. But yeah, I wasn't able to.
Okay.
Yeah. My resume wasn't fit.
Incidentally, on your internships, how much of a choice did you have? Like, were you? I'm sure you were deliberate about the internships you were taking on in terms of where you wanted to get to, or were there kind of like some serendipitous moments where you just like, oh wow, I didn't realize this internship would lead me here? Or
definitely serendipitous because I felt like, as I was saying in the beginning, I didn't have the mentors as I was starting my journey in corporate finance. And because there's so much to learn and, you know, you're in your first year, the time that you have to start applying for internships is just like that first semester. And you're also, you have competing priorities. You're in school, you have to do the classwork, and a lot of that classwork is very hectic and busy. So the time you have spare to like do deep research on all of these options, but still because you've never done the work, you don't really understand what you'd be doing anyway until you get the practical experience. So what I did was when I was applying for internships is we had a career fair. I gave my resume to as many people who would take it. I followed up with those people that followed up with me. I interviewed and I took the best option.
Okay.
In finance. Because you have to be chosen as well, you know? So
so finally your FemTech work, because I can see like in some of your work projects, feminine care, I can see that some of that ended up being important in your work and in your focus on FemTech.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that space, what it involves and what you're doing there.
Okay. So to get there, I just want to do a very quick overview. After I worked with Rare Breed for several years, okay? And then in 2020, I started getting into the African tech ecosystem.
Okay.
DMing people on Twitter, seeing who would meet with me, and then seeing who they would connect me to. In all of those meetings that I was having with people, I was telling them, I'm working with this fund called Rare Breed Ventures. I, for the longest time since I was 18, wanted to invest in Africa-focused startups. I'm trying to write an investment thesis on investing in African-focused startups. This is what I'm thinking. am I on the right path or not, based off of your on the ground experience, having done this work,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm.
in whatever capacity you've been doing it for X amount of time.
Okay.
So from there, I kept having meetings, and then I figured out, I learned the lay of the land, who's doing what: media, VCs, ecosystem enablers, founders, and where they were in their journey.
Okay.
And then I figured out what I wanted to do to create my own brand, I guess, in the space, which was learning in public.
Okay.
But the way that I was going to be learning in public was through writing like deeper insights than what I was seeing, because a lot of it was a lot of the tech content is short form tweets, some media, like obviously announcements, funding announcements. There's folks who are doing the data side, Africa the Big Deal, Brighter Bridges, of who's raised and how much they've raised, media announcements. There was some insights and analytics, especially with longer reports and things like that. But again, most of those reports were focused on where is the capital going, which markets, maybe some macro factors that explained why those markets, obviously the breakdown of sectors, things like that. But I still felt like I didn't understand what could succeed as an investment opportunity versus not. I wasn't seeing that content. You still had to do the work to figure it out yourself. And so that's what I decided to do. I realized that a lot of even founders don't do the deep research to figure out if what they're working on is a venture scale opportunity, is one thing I noticed, because I was getting a lot of DMs from founders, wanting to build things, but there seemed to be a disconnect between the expectations of the VCs and what they're looking for in opportunities versus what founders sometimes would present. So in learning in public, my objective was to give founders more exposure around, this is what a VC wants from you, explicitly. And then so looking at FemTech, that's what I was doing explicitly in that write-up.
Okay.
I wrote 3 parts. So very quickly, the first part, and this was not only for me, it was also for founders who are building in the space.
Okay.
So to understand an opportunity, you first need to know how big a problem is. And so for me, when I started writing this, I wanted to understand what is impacting African women from contributing more to the economy. So I found, researching, whatever, found a statistic that had indicated that advancing women's health and equity could add 316 billion or 10% to Africa's GDP. Okay, so that's the headline. If we advance women's health, these would be the results. So what are the problems? First, I needed to understand what is holding women back. So what are the challenges they're facing? And so what I did here in writing this piece, the first part was more of a macro view. Section 1 was about how women are pivotal to improving African economies. I explained why. Women represent 50% of the continent's human resources, but only contribute 33% to GDP. Section 2 was women face more health-related challenges, African women, than women in the rest of the world. I did a deep dive into menstrual health, fertility and adolescent pregnancy, STIs, and maternal health, because these are all factors that impact a woman's health. If a woman is not healthy, then she can't contribute as much as she can to the economy. She can't work, she can't create businesses. So I wanted to understand, why are African women having these problems? As it pertains to menstrual health, we know that a lot of young girls don't have access to pads. Therefore, they stay home and don't go to school. If you're not educated, then you cannot learn how to either build business, be a great employee. Like, just that lack of access to education is a barrier to entry into opportunities, economic developing opportunities. And so I looked into that and I figured out why, women can't afford it based off of their minimum wage. There's taxation factors. There's so many different factors. So I looked into that. Same with fertility and adolescent pregnancy. Most African women give birth to most of the people in the world, but they have high risks of adolescent pregnancy for specific reasons. So rate of child marriage, poverty, years of schooling. So African women get pregnant early, right? And if they're getting pregnant early, they're raising children versus working. Then I looked at STIs. Again, here there's the lack of access to medications to prevent HPV. Even looking at condoms and all these different factors. So that was my macro view. I literally put in graphs, looked at how everything. What are all the macro factors that hamper African women from being as healthy as they can be to contribute to the economy? So then I said, fine, now I have that understanding. How do which technology companies on the continent are working to solve these problems?
Okay.
So in the second part, I looked specifically at venture-backable FemTech models in Africa. And so I again broke it down the same way I first looked at menstrual health, but to understand because for this piece, it was for both the founder and the investor.
Okay.
So if you're a founder building in menstrual health, you should only go out for venture capital if your product and business looks like this. Otherwise, it's not a venture-backable business. That's okay. But you need to know that as you're trying to access financing. Okay. Because there's different types of financing, right? So for menstrual health, the menstrual hygiene market in Africa was $4 billion when I was looking at this data. Then I looked at in which markets that $4 billion is being spent by consumers, obviously largely in Nigeria. So, and then again, but most of these sales are being done offline. People are shopping for pads in store. So if you're telling me that you're building a tech platform that distributes menstrual pads through, logistics or e-com or whatever, then I'm going to say, well, most of the sales are being done offline. So how are you going to change that consumer behavior? And that goes back to, some of the pricing strategy work that I've done where a lot of it was focused on consumer behavior to drive volume. So that's a factor that you have to be very aware of as a founder building. How do people actually buy? And if you're trying to disrupt that process, what makes it so differentiated or appealing to the consumer to change how they're buying today? Okay. So then again, in this process, I broke down the market in Nigeria. Most of the FemTech, the menstrual pads, are being sold by one company, Edgewell. Similar to P&G, Edgewell has several brands underneath it. So in Nigeria, if you're going to start your e-com menstrual health platform there, you need to get Edgewell to be your client or to be your third-party distributor, give you pads. Otherwise, you don't have a business.
Okay.
So what I realized is that founders aren't doing this work per se to rationalize why their product is going to actually make money. That's why I did this analysis. I did the same thing. So at the end of the day, what I found and concluded in this process is for each of these subsectors in FemTech, because of the market size, it's not venture backable, or because of the way the consumer buys, it's going to be difficult for you to change the status quo. Therefore, you need to build in this way. You need to have a platform that sells products, not only menstrual health products, pads. You need to also do maternal health products. So you need to do pregnancy tests on your e-com platform. You need to also be selling contraception. You need to be selling oncology products. If you want to win in this space, this is how you have to do it. Okay. And so there was an example company that is doing well in this space that's raised Series B financing called Kasha. They're an e-com basically platform that sells a lot of menstrual health products, and their focus is FemTech products, and that's their entire focus. Okay. FemTech e-com platform, basically selling everything, not just pads. So as me and my co-author were putting this together, we literally, what makes our process what it is in our research, we take data from Africa the Big Deal, we take data from Brighter Bridges, we consolidate that, we figure out what each company is doing, and in this process, we created a market map of this is where the concentration of where founders are building, and this is where white space opportunities exist to build. And these white space opportunities, these are the specific white space opportunities that are worth going out to invest in or build in because the market size is huge and the concentration of deals is low or founders building in the space is low. So that's the work I was doing in FemTech explicitly. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. What you normally have, as you've stated, is I'm either going to go in because as a founder, I'm either going to go in because of grants, or I'm either going to go in because they're asking for certain categories of products. And if my product fits that category, then I'm going to submit my product and hope for the best. I'm going to find the best people in terms of helping me pitch. I'm going to try to get my ducks in a row, and then I'll present my product. But in terms of me going in and saying, okay, let me study the market, let me study the needs that exist within that market, let me study pricing structure, consumer. Very few of us think in those terms.
Yeah.
In terms of scouting or trying to connect founders with businesses, what I normally have tried to do myself is just say, okay, what metrics, what kind of metrics are VCs looking for when they're investing? So try to get the guys that I think are worth investing in to check all those boxes. Do you have a good team? Is your legal fine? Do you have product market fit and all that kind of stuff? But you're finding very few that are pursuing something because they've done a lot of research and they're passionate about it. So this is really, really rich.
Yeah. So for me, everything that you had indicated after with like the team, like, do you have your legal ducks in a row? Have you built a product? All of that stuff to me comes after identifying that a market opportunity exists. You then build for that opportunity because you understand it, right? If you don't understand it well, obviously, like, you can build and do well as a business. But if you don't know the market, then sometimes you're kind of building in, like, with a blindfold, I guess, a little bit, where things could be going really well, but you still need to do that market research to find where's opportunity actually exists to scale. So whether it's you yourself, the founder, doing it, it's typically best if it's yourself, because you would understand it. You understand it best. You can obviously hire someone to write you a report as well. Yeah.
And this can be applied to all sorts of other sectors in tech. Right?
Yeah. Of course. Yes.
This is really good. Okay. Now, in terms of what you're doing now, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah.
Because that's probably the best place to end in terms of your contacts.
Yes.
I can also probably recommend that I can get you the contacts of a group that I'm a part of. I don't know if you've heard of Founders Lounge.
Yes, I had Daniel's number. Okay, yeah.
Cool. Would be good to maybe talk to some of the female founders, or the founders themselves, just to share your ideas. But anyhow, how can people find you so they can connect with you?
Yeah. I'm always looking forward to connecting with people, hearing, because I guess as I indicated, inclusivity is a big part of my personality. But one thing that I did at my time in Accenture is I did this thing called the Gallup Strengths Finder. And it kind of tells you about, like, who you are. And my number one strength was that I'm a maximizer. I like to take people and things from good to great. So I like to help people kind of identify their potential and to focus their efforts on that. So anyway, so always want to meet, so that we can, like, brainstorm together, and also talk about life, because life is very interesting. But my Twitter is @Ntambi. I'm mostly active on Twitter.
Okay.
So I would say definitely DM me on Twitter.
So that's Marge
Ntambi.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. What about your LinkedIn?
Margaret Ntambi.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that deep session. Probably the longest episode I've ever recorded.
Oh, really? Oh, my goodness. I talk too much.
Rich talk. So much.
Thank you, too.
Intersection. Intersection Magazine Podcast.